Bad news for the fan-favorite Fantasmic show on Rivers of America. Worse for the Dragon. Good news for those who want more alcohol in Disneyland. Bad news, though, for DCA, maybe? But first, let's talk about Magic Keys, the lawsuit that was settled, and the future of the Disneyland Annual Pass. About a week ago, it was revealed through court filings that Disney had settled the Magic Key lawsuit. Back in December of 2021, Disney was sued over the Magic Key program, specifically the Dream Key. The suit alleged that Disney was misleading guests. They were selling a pass, the Dream Key, whose main selling point was that it had no blockout dates. That's what set it apart from all the other passes. It is what most would have considered to be the go whenever you want pass. Except per the lawsuit, guests couldn't go whenever they want because of the reservation system. Dates would sell out or get booked, and therefore Dream Keys could conceivably be unable to book a desired date. Well, not conceivably, it actually did happen, literally. Often it happened. Now, of course, there was language in the annual pass's legal terms that suggested that this was possible, that dates might be subject to availability, to use a term. But the lawsuit would contend that this is not how these passes were sold outwardly. Guests were not given the impression that this was the case. The impression given and the impression inferred by those guests was that there was no limitations, that you could go whenever you want. Now, not long after that, in what some could observe as being an admission that this was the case, Disney stopped selling the Dream Key. And then they stopped selling all the Magic Keys altogether. Today, the only pass that you can still buy right now is the Inspire Key. The Believe Key, the Enchant Key, and the Imagine Key, all of those are unavailable for purchase. Now, there's a lot more to this story that evolved over the past, 20 months or so, but those are the basics and bring us to the present. And where that present is, that Disney settled that lawsuit. Now, most would suggest that in settling, Disney they're choosing not to fight. It's not a loss, strictly speaking, but it's not a win either. To put another way, a plaintiff can settle, but typically they settle from a position of strength, not weakness. Alternatively, a defendant in these cases can settle, but they don't normally settle from a position of strength. They settle from a position of weakness. We won't know for sure until we find out what those settlement terms are. They haven't revealed that yet. August 31st is the deadline for that, although it's possible we could hear about those settlement terms before then. Now, all this is to suggest that Disney has determined one of two things, or actually possibly both. First, Disney may have decided that going to trial risks discovery of their plans, of their business plans, their practices, their data. They would be forced to discuss what their processes were in order to combine the sale of Magic Keys, specifically the Dream Key, with the reservation system. I have contended since the beginning that a pass such as the Dream Key, one with no limitations, no blockout dates, the go whenever you want pass, that does not at all mix with the reservation system. They don't go together. Second, Disney may have realized the value of that kind of pass, because that's the kind of guest that is not going to the parks, at least to a lesser extent than they used to. The guests today using the Inspire Key still don't have the same access that the Dream Key had. By limiting those guests' ability to go to the park whenever they want, at their leisure, it has cost them significantly more than what they had hoped to save by limiting their attendance, by enforcing the reservation system on a Dream Key. My observation has been that Disney had hoped to get sort of the best of both worlds, to achieve both goals, to sell the Magic Key, but then to get them to not show up so that they could sell more individual tickets. Believing in the process that those single-day ticket holders, those were the guests that spent the most money in the parks. They wanted to encourage more of those guests to come in while also collecting all of that Magic Key revenue. Per visit spend has been one of the favorite metrics of Disney executives for years now. We hear them talking about that, or have in the past talked about that constantly in their quarterly calls and things of that nature. How much does the average guest spend per visit? But in the process of trying to achieve both of those goals, Disney may have lost that guest who actually goes to the parks for the very reason that Disney wants them to do, to buy merchandise and to buy food and to not clog up the park too much. That's the ideal guest from my perspective, and it's possible Disney may have finally realized that themselves. that it's the annual pass holder, the local who goes all the time, and they go only to spend money on the latest food and the latest merch, and they don't really go on a lot of rides. And therefore, they're not, clogging up the park, and there's plenty of room left for single-day ticket holders and the casual visitor. So it may be that they have decided to settle this lawsuit so that they can recapture that guest, so they can begin selling again the kind of pass that guest buys, the kind of pass that they haven't been able to sell since the lawsuit began, the Dream Key. And to me, that was always the end game for the suit from the plaintiff's point of view. I mean, there may be a financial reward or award that they're seeking here, a monetary damages, as it were, but considering this is a class action lawsuit, though that amount would be, distributed by so many pass holders that it would be inconsequential. So really, that's not the goal. The goal isn't to make anybody rich, obviously, except for the lawyers who are going to make a little bit of money from this. The goal, in my thought, was to change Disney's policy. And if they are settling, and it could be that Disney is deciding to make just that change. Now, not entirely. They're not going to get rid of the reservation system entirely, I don't think, at least not right away. This, by the way, this is just conjecture on my part. But they might get rid of it for the Dream Key. They might decide they want to start selling Dream Keys with no blockout dates, and that Dream Key would have or require no reservation. They would still sell the Inspire Key, the Enchant Key, the Imagine Key. They would still sell those keys. So this would be at least some kind of compromise, something to bridge that gap a little bit. And I believe that if they were to sell the Dream Key again, no blockout dates, no reservations, that they would sell the heck out of those. I know I, for one, would upgrade my pass immediately to one of those. And they would even they would sell even more of them if they went ahead and rolled in a Genie Plus like they did with Max Pass. Max Pass was included with your annual pass purchase. They would sell a lot more of those at that point. Now, you could even roll that 20, I don't know, what would be the equitable figure? I'm riffing now at this point. If you were to sell Genie Plus a la carte for a whole year, what would that price point be? Well, whatever that is, whatever Disney deems that number is, you just add that on top of the price of the Dream Key, or on top of the Inspire Key, I should say. If the Inspire Key is selling for $1,600 right now, you add another $150 for the 2 weeks in the holidays, and then another $200 for the Genie Plus to add that in. Boom, Bob's your uncle. Done. And I feel like that's the future of the Magic Keys right now. Stay tuned for August 31st, because that's when we're going to get our answer on this, or hopefully, at least something close to an answer. And I am strangely optimistic. That that is where we're going to land. I fingers crossed. And then perhaps by the new year, we have a system that is, something similar to what is already scheduled to be happening at Walt Disney World. In Walt Disney World, in January, Disney is ending the reservation system completely for single-day tickets. There will still be a reservation system for, I believe, for pass holders, although they have already ended the reservation system for those guys, for guests who want to go to the park after 2 p.m. After 2 p.m., right now, at Walt Disney World, after 2 p.m., no reservations are needed for annual pass holders, or for single-day ticket holders as well, I would imagine. Stay tuned. August 31st, man. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that day a lot. By the way, I mentioned renewing. I mentioned that I would renew or upgrade my pass, my Inspire Key pass to a Dream Key right away. People have been asking me, how do I, or when are we going to hear about news to renew my Magic Key? And the answer to that actually is you already can. You can now. Well, you can. That policy, I don't think, ever went away after last year. You can renew your pass within 30 days of your expiration. So for me, my Magic Key pass was going to expire on August 25th. That means I could renew on July 25th, and it's really easy to do. All you have to do is go to the Disneyland website. This works, I think it only works on the website, not on your phone. Go to the Disneyland website, click Profile, Membership and Passes, and if you have a pass that is expiring within the next 30 days, you should see a Renew Now button. And all you got to do is click that button and then confirm the price and monthly payment of your new pass, and then go through all the legal mumbo jumbo and put in your credit card and all that. But that's it. It's very simple. It's basically 2 button clicks or 3 button clicks. And you'll notice, by the way, that the price hasn't gone up. They haven't raised the prices yet. I don't know when we should expect that, but it's only been, I think, 9 months since the last price increase. Now, August 31st might be a date to expect that as well. If they do bring back the Dream Key, expect that key to cost significantly more than $1,600. Expect that, and this is the way I always thought it would be. When they first started selling, I'm riffing again, when they first started selling Magic Keys, or Magic Keys back in the day, right after COVID, I thought they were going to charge a lot more for the Dream Key than they did. I was shocked at how cheap it was. So I do expect them to come around on that. I expect that key to cost $2,000 or more if it happens. I'm not saying it will. I'm strangely confident, but if it happens, do expect something beyond the $2,000 point. And again, I would be shocked if they didn't, because they're just giving money away at that point. Anyway, with regards to renewing, comment below if you're unsure, what your situation is. Comment below, and I'll try to help you out in terms of how to renew your pass, or when and if you can. With that, let's talk next about some news that just broke today as I record this. Maybe yesterday, depending on when I get this video out. Maybe yesterday as you're watching it. Starting September 12th, Disney will be expanding the number of restaurants that serve alcohol in Disneyland proper. Alcohol in Disneyland. That list will now include, as of September 12th, Carnation Cafe on Main Street, River Belle Terrace, and Cafe Orleans. Per the update from Disney, wine, beer, and specialty cocktails will be served. Not long ago, the only place that you could get served in Disneyland was at Club 33. Then with the arrival of Galaxy's Edge and Oga's Cantina, guests were being served there, and that was sort of perceived as a separate sort of thing that happened. You were indoors, you needed a reservation to get in there. You couldn't just walk up and order it. So that felt separate. Same thing then applied like a year or two later at Blue Bayou. Same situation, requires a reservation, it's all indoors, it's separate. Blue Bayou is serving alcohol now. A couple years after that, today we're at Cafe Orleans, River Belle Terrace, Carnation Cafe. And again, all 3 of those are table service restaurants. And so far it is limited to just that, table service restaurants, but it's now all of the table service restaurants at Disneyland. But having said that, I do think it's just a matter of time before we start seeing beer service, at the Golden Horseshoe, which, that seems like a natural, or at, the Harbor Galley or something like that, places where you could just walk up and order a beer. I feel like we're maybe a couple years from that point, depending on how well this goes, how well it is received by guests, and how well it works for Disney financially. Obviously, they're feeling pretty okay about it with respect to, the income earned. Oga's is busy all the time. Oga's is packed, always. Same is pretty much true for Blue Bayou. So I feel like that's just a net positive for them in terms of alcohol sales. Now, having said that, my first question when I heard this news is why? Why would they do this? And obviously the answer is clear. And that kind of, I'm kind of having a hard time with that, because if the answer is obvious, to make more money, it does sort of bring to mind the fact that maybe Disney's not doing very well, because it does feel kind of desperate. It does feel kind of like they're hitting a panic button a little bit. I would feel better knowing that Disney was solvent enough that they didn't feel like they needed to sell alcohol in the parks, as opposed to feeling like they do in order to create a new revenue stream. And personally, as an old school guest, not a next gen guest, but an old gen guest, a previous gen guest, I kind of like the idea of Disney limiting its alcohol service. But then I don't drink a whole lot. I don't get a lot of alcohol in the park anyway, so that I don't feel like it impacted me very much. But I did poll the audience a little bit on social media, and I would say that the response is mostly positive from guests. Now, interestingly, I had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple months ago, and he predicted both of these occurrences. The idea that Disney would be selling more alcohol in the park soon, and also that we may not be seeing the return of Murphy in Fantasmic, which is something we're going to get into in a minute. But his thinking was that guests wouldn't mind so much the lack of a dragon if they had a little bit of alcohol. That guests would actually tolerate less show in general, not just Fantasmic, but less show in general, or a longer wait in the queue, or whatever. They would tolerate those issues more if they had a little bit of alcohol to go with it. And it's actually kind of a complex conversation, something that I might get into in more detail in a future video. But suffice it to say that I feel like this decision and some of the other ones made recently could be a result of Disney's sort of gradual departure from classic management with decades of experience and institutional knowledge, and more towards younger and younger hires with less experience, less institutional knowledge, less interest in what Disney was, and more interest in what they think Disney should be. Not that I think it's necessarily wrong. It could be the right thing. It could be that they need to start addressing the modern guest. Just an observation, a conversation worth having at least. Speaking of observations, how about this one? What about DCA? What about park hopper upgrades? For some, alcohol was the reason why you went to DCA. Whole different vibe there. I've talked about this in past videos. I want to hang out in Disneyland with the nostalgia and all that, but there are days when I just want a completely different vibe, and I go to DCA for that. But why go to DCA if I can now get served at Disneyland? How much will this affect guests' willingness to purchase a park hopper upgrade to their single-day ticket? $65 per ticket right now to upgrade to a park hopper. That's not insignificant. How many drinks is that? How many of those park hoppers will they not sell now that some of those guests can just decide they're going to stay at Disneyland? This is not something that I don't think they're going to feel the effects of today in the near term. It's much easier to get a beer at DCA than it would be even after this policy is in effect here at Disneyland, because these are all locations that require a reservation. It's much more difficult to get a drink at the River Belle or Cafe Orleans or at Oga's Cantina. Far more difficult to get a drink there than it is to go to DCA and just walk up to any dining location and get a beer. So that they won't notice this for a while now, until Disneyland does eventually grow to add beer service, let's say, at the Golden Horseshoe. Let's get into some Fantasmic news. You know what? I am so sorry. I wish I had better. Well, the good news was at the top of the show, right? The good news was the possibility of us getting a Dream Key back. That's positive. And I guess for a lot of people, the opportunity to buy alcohol in the parks is positive. I like to see both sides of the argument. And as I mentioned, I may or may not be representative of the modern guest. I'm kind of an old school guest. I am that old guy that likes nostalgia and all those things, but I digress. We're talking about Fantasmic, and it's not great news. Disney confirmed late Tuesday night to cast, and then eventually publicly, that they have decided to put off bringing back Fantasmic until the spring of 2024. Recently, they said it wouldn't be sooner than Labor Day this year, which is in September. That's off the table now, and then it's going to be spring now in 2024, and probably the reason why it's going to take until spring is because they have decided, per the update to cast, that whatever it is that they do in spring will not include the dragon. They are going to do an entirely separate grand finale, but the finale will be between Mickey and Maleficent, and not Maleficent the Dragon. There will be no dragon. I think the idea of the dragon is gone. I had been saying for a while that people keep asking me about Murphy in live streams and things like that, what my thoughts were, and I had been saying I was kind of 50-50 on that. I felt like there was a very real possibility that we wouldn't see Murphy in the future, that Disney might decide, and I'm now 100% on that side, obviously, but Disney might decide that if they felt like they can still create a show that wowed guests, and that is actually the words they used. Let me go back to that. Per the notice, the teams are working to bring the show back with new magic and a new finale between Sorcerer Mickey and Maleficent. But whatever that new magic is, whatever that new finale is, it will not include the dragon. There will be no dragon. Not on a stick, not a projection, not any kind of B mode. There's going to be no dragon. So like I said, I feel like the reason for this is that Disney felt like if they could put on a show, a Fantasmic show that could draw the same sort of, the same number of guests, that they could fill in the Rivers of America like they did in the past, that they could still wow guests and bring them back every single night, 2 times a night. If they could do that without a dragon, that they would. If they could find a way. Have they? I don't know. I don't even think they have an idea yet. I think that they're going to spend the next 6 to 9 months figuring that out. Now, I've got, some mixed feelings about this, because when the tragedy first happened, when we first lost Murphy, my initial response was, gosh, how could they continue doing Fantasmic without the dragon? I mean, the dragon is Fantasmic. It's literally, he features in every single piece of promotional material. Every time you talk about Fantasmic, you talk about that battle between Mickey and the dragon. How do you just replace it or get rid of it? Can Disney do it without the dragon? Would you see, put it to you this way, if right now, if you went to the parks tonight and they put on a Fantasmic show without the dragon, no mist, no stick, if they put on a Fantasmic show without the dragon, would you go? Are the projections and the music and the floats with the monkeys and the princesses and the snake on the stage and the boat with all those characters and the big Some Imagination Hunt finale, is all of that enough? Or is it Murphy or we walk? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm just wondering the collective group out there. Personally, I'm willing to listen at this point because I do feel like there's so many good things to talk about with regard to Fantasmic. I love so much of that show. And really, my favorite part of the show is the finale, to be honest. You know, I really love that with him on top of the... Anyway, I think that's great. So I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to see what they can do. I just want a nighttime spectacular show back on the Rivers of America, even if it means something of a watered-down Fantasmic. But like I said, there's reason to be optimistic. Let's hope for the best. The one thing I'm sure I don't want is for whatever they wind up doing to be monetized somehow, be that, you know, something that incorporates the need of a, you know, the ears, like with the Glow With Your Show at World of Color or the Magic Band. I'm not interested in any of that. What about you, Fresh Baked? Would you see a Fantasmic show that did not feature the dragon at all? Does that interest you? What is your dropout point? Murphy on a stick, a projection, or are you ready for a brand new reimagined show? Something that is going to wow guests. Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel. And then follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked and on Twitter at FreshBaked, as he has fresh with no E. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.
This one says it's all right. You're dead.